Hi everyone, I'm Alister Benn and this is Expressive Photography. In this week's video we follow on exactly from where we left off last week in that beautiful glen in the west coast of Scotland, and the weather had got kind of overcast and my mood was definitely on the downer. Of course I'd just broken my drone and was maybe feeling a little bit deflated, and initially we were photographing in this very tight little canyon and I was feeling very claustrophobic, and it was just allowing the landscape to speak to me and introducing some colour was what it took to kind of bring me out of myself and make images that I felt were kind of more representative of the joy that I feel in the Scottish landscape. So a lot of this follows on from my latest ebook, The Colour of Meaning. Please click on the link below and buy yourself a copy. The feedback has been exceptional for this book and I'm just so grateful for everyone who's supporting our work by buying a copy of The Colour of Meaning. I think it will give you a great insight into how colour can make you feel in the landscape, and more than that, how to use colour so effectively in communicating our emotions when we're showing our images to the rest of the world. So one of the beautiful things about small scenes is that you can literally just follow your heart. And in this little scene behind me, I don't know if you can see there's just a couple of fan-like flows of water over some nice rocks, and there's a little bit of yellow lichen on one of the rocks there. And when we see it in the camera there, it's very obvious that there's some beautiful flow to it. It's almost like Japanese fans of light as this the luminosity in the water and these streaks. And the key component with this type of photography, especially with flowing water, is getting the shutter speed right. And I'll just move to the side of the camera here, and I'm shooting this at 1/8 of a second, f13 ISO 320, and what that's allowing me to do is get detail in the water here. I want lots of energy, I want lots of sparkle. If I slow this down by lowering my ISO and shooting it at say 1/1.3, what becomes very evident is that we lose some of the sparkle, but we abstract it somewhat. And which one you like really becomes a matter of personal preference. Now, I might find that if I juggle around with my ISO and shutter speed, that half a second's looking kind of good. And this is what you do, is there's a relationship between our shutter speed and our ISO, and all we have to do is, if we want a slower shutter speed, we bring our ISO down. If we want a faster shutter speed, we bring our ISO up, letting in more light. So at the moment I've got a half a second at 64 ISO. If I go to a third of a second at 100 ISO, we're starting to get a little bit more detail. Every time you speed up that shutter speed, you're getting more and more detail, until you can do something ridiculous like shoot at 800 ISO at 1/30th of a second, and we're going to get tons of detail, and you can see all of that super detail in there. And really, this is the aesthetics of time.
which I think is one of the most important superpowers that landscape photographers possess.
So the final image from the first scene, I've chosen a shutter speed that's actually quite slow. There's not so much detail in there, and I think the reason for choosing that was maybe spontaneous, but it's very atmospheric. The way the water's blowing around just feels like it's got tons of atmosphere. And I like the little greeny fleck of the lichen under the water there, and that red rock down on the bottom left hand side there. So it feels kind of well connected to me, and it feels very contained. The 4:5 aspect ratio again is going to make it feel quite classic and very self-contained. So yeah, on the whole, quite happy with this one.
I know there's some stuff behind me, so I'm going to explore some of that as well to see if we can piece together some kind of challenging compositions, but maybe something a little bit different. So the scene behind me is, it might be one of these just ones that doesn't work. And the reason it might not work is that I might not be able to find the right shutter speed to kind of make it feel the way I want it to feel. I'm having to use 400mm. I'm zoomed right into this little canyon behind me, and everything's very tight, and I'm on a very difficult position on a kind of a soft slope, so the tripod's moving around. But I just like the form. I like the way the water's folding in on itself. I like the kind of confined, tense atmosphere of that left-hand wall. So there's quite a lot I like about that thing, but it might not turn into a particularly interesting photograph. I've tried various shutter speeds. You go too quick and it just gets too mushy. Go too fast and it gets a bit too chaotic. So it's really a struggle to maybe get this one to work. But you know, I'm engaged.
The second scene photograph was always going to be a bit of a struggle. I do like the rushing energy at the bottom of the frame there with the splashes. I really kind of like that, and I've managed to bring out some of the mossy detail on that left hand side. This is always going to be a struggle, this one, and I don't think I'll be posting this one on Insta anytime soon. But the fact remains, I was still engaged with the landscape in a meaningful way, and I enjoyed my time in there, even if the photograph isn't terribly successful.
So I've actually found it a bit of a struggle this morning, and I can feel my voice going from doing quite a lot of talking. Up in the canyon there, everything was very confined, and the clouds have really come over quite heavy, and it's really starting to affect my mood, where it feels very intimidating. We're surrounded by these huge big mountains. This is a glen with a lot of history. A lot of bad things happened to some fine Scottish people in here, and I've always felt a bit of melancholy in this particular location. So the scene that's behind me feels kind of tense, it feels kind of moody, and again the same things are going on. Shutter speed is very important. Got quite a lot of high dynamic range. The white of the surf and the foaming water is very bright, and there's some very dark rocks, so the raw files are going to look pretty dark and moody. But just the way those two pools are reflecting the trees and a little bit of that ambient light round about us is creating this kind of window into perhaps another world. Now I've cropped this into 16:9. It's a little trick. The camera doesn't natively shoot in 16:9. It's not a choice in the D850. But if you're in the video mode and you press the shutter button, it will shoot 16:9. It's almost cropping it in camera because of the video aspect ratio. So that's a little trick that I use just to get 16:9 out of a D850. But yeah, I kind of like this scene. And Kristin and I have been in here before, and we'll maybe dig out that photograph because the light was a lot better, just to show you how the change in the light between day to day makes such a difference in scenes like this, especially when we're talking reflections. When we were in here in January, there was a pink cloud above us reflecting some very lovely light into that pool. So quite a different vibe. But yeah, you know, taking it slow, not rushing things, just trying to engage with the landscape and feel it really. And even though I'm not necessarily feeling 100% creative, the landscape still speaks to me. And I think as soon as I stop trying to make photographs to show in this video, I'll probably have a bit more of a better creative time of it. But you know, that's what it is, and it is what it is. So I'll try and get back into that. So I do truly believe that there are compositions everywhere, and the deciding factor on whether you think something is a composition or not is whether you like it, and whether you believe in it, and whether you commit to it, and whether you feel that it's worth pointing your camera at. Now, the river behind me, the rock ground here is stunning. We've got some beautiful red granite. There's a very famous mountain in that direction that's a big lump of red granite. But in the river here, we've got all these beautiful red boulders, and the way the water's flowing over the top of it is creating these kind of diagonal ripples of light. And the red boulders are the colour that just brings it to life. As I was talking about in the book, The Colour of Meaning, which is available now, colour triggers our emotions. I've been in this canyon and everything's been muted and monochromatic. I point my camera at here and all of a sudden it's light, luminosity, contrast, angles, atmosphere and colour, and all of a sudden my mood has been lifted. The power of the landscape to change our day, the power of colour to change our mood is one of the most important things in landscape photography, and it is the gift that just keeps on giving. So yeah, I should listen to myself sometimes. I think it's very easy for us not to be thinking smart an awful lot of the time, and really what I'm trying to do now is to get into far more focused, moment by moment enjoyment of things. But it's so easy for the landscape to bring us down, it's so easy for our expectations to bring us down, but it's so easy equally for the landscape to lift us up.
Now, near the end of the shoot, I just turned round and saw this mass of granite rocks under the water surface, and they're really quite red. I mean, pinky red granite. And the way I've processed this one, it's quite moody in a way, in that the shadows are quite deep, but equally the water is very vibrant and very textured. But it's the red in the rocks underneath the surface of the water there that's infusing the image with a more joyful mood. There's some cooler tones in there, but it's the warmer, rich tones are the ones that are kind of having the most impact on our emotions. And this is really important. I did feel as soon as I started noticing these red rocks in the river there that my mood lifted. Now finally, this last image here, this is just a kind of distillation of that emotional reaction, which is very red rocks in a diagonal with rushing water round about it, so it's quite atmospheric as well. And I like this. I think as a study of the Scottish geology in this area, I think it's quite successful. We were packing up and I noticed it, and I actually got my camera back out my bag to take this photograph, and it's probably my favorite of the whole morning. And again, photography for me is about engaging with the landscape, feeling the landscape and noticing things, and I noticed this, and that is enough for me. I hope you find this content useful. If so, please give me a thumbs up, a like and a subscription. We were really hoping at the start of 2020 to get to 20,000 subscribers. That's looking really unlikely now, unless all you folks hit that subscribe button and share like crazy. We were really hoping to get to 20k, but it's been such a grind. It's been really hard work, and we're very grateful and very proud of where we have got to. But 20k was the target, so I'm scared we're going to fall short of that. So please support the channel with a thumbs up and a subscription. That's really helping us out to get these videos out to a bigger audience, because really we're not having as much impact as perhaps we could. If you've enjoyed it, do all that for us, and please click on that link below and get yourself a copy of The Colour of Meaning, because our emotional relationship with the landscape is such an important thing, and the use of colour to express those emotions is one of the greatest skills that landscape photographers can have. So thank you very much for your support as always, and hopefully on Wednesday I will be bringing you a Vision and Light episode with another great English landscape photographer, the wonderful and foresty Simon Baxter. So thanks for watching, and thanks for tuning in later in the week, and we'll see you soon. I hope you're all well, and thanks for watching. Bye.